Hello. If you have not ever seen one of my videos, my name is Ashley. I'm 33 years old. I currently live in St. Albans, Vermont by myself with my dog, Bonnie, who's over here. And I'm going to say we're not living the life, but we're making it work. Um, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, I would say I'm a survivor of trauma, um, PTSD, anxiety, depression, wonderful things. I mean, things we go through in life that are just, they happen. And some people are not so nice. And for me, it was circumstantial. I did not ever have any mental illness ever in my life. Um, I just went through a very scary situation where I was stalked, hacked, basically bullied, basically driven out of my home. Family didn't really. I'm not get too much into it, but that'll be for another video. Because I recorded one, but then I was like, nope, it didn't really like sit well with me. I think I was gonna put it instead of like having about my life and my story. I want to make it like how I coped through a really hard experience, and then I came out from it the other side. So, but this video, I wanted to talk about can guys and girls really be friends, and then I also wanted to talk about friends with benefits. Such a juicy topic. I feel like, okay, so let's first start off with can guys and girls really be friends? And this is going to be in the platonic sense, and then I'm going to go into friends with benefits. I think so. Yes, I do think guys and girls can be friends. Um, if either party is not attracted to one another at all, then yes. And you can keep it strictly platonic. It's a very simple, straightforward answer. I myself, I can't really say that I have any guy friends. Even growing up, I really didn't have. Actually, I'll tell you about. I did have one guy friend, and it was in summer camp, and I don't know, he was just fun to be around, and we would laugh a lot, and he was really into theater and musical theater. I don't know if he was gay or not. I kind of suspected he was, but then he also gave off vibes that he wasn't, so I don't really know. I will say, though, that if you're not careful, attraction can get in the way. And this is, I'm talking about, can a heterosexual male be friends with a heterosexual female? I don't know. I mean, like, I said yes, but then also, like, it really depends. Because if there's no attraction between both people, if you have no previous history of, like, sexual encounters or intercourse or flirting or any type of romance, then maybe it's possible. Especially if a woman is gay, I will say it's probably easier for a man to be friends with her because, right, there's going to be no attraction. But if there is attraction, I think it's going to be a little bit harder because it's just it's going to make it difficult, right? Like, I did know there was one guy when I was living in Virginia. He told me that he did have friends who were women, several friends, and he said they're attractive too, and like they've never hooked up or whatever. I'm like, wow. I'm like, bow down to you. I'm like, kudos to you. I'm like, oof, you know. I'm like, that's pretty admirable. Like I can't. I don't think for me. I've tried to people that I've like already been like intimate with or like maybe started like a romantic conversation with or connection with. I always kind of like, I think to be nice, to not sound like a bitch, I say, oh yeah, I'll stay friends with you, because I don't want to sound rude. Because at the end of the day, if I cut things off with someone, I even if they were like a jerk to me or they lied to me or something, I'm the kind of person where I try to leave people better off than when I first met them. And sometimes, like, some people you meet, they come into your life for like a reason, a season, a lifetime. But I am the type of person that when I end things with somebody, I always, if I really, like, if there's someone that I feel like I can maybe reach out to in the future, like if I, need some form of support or they need support, or if we had a really good rapport, then maybe, yeah, I will choose to say, hey, maybe we could stay friends. And really, does that really mean stay friends? Like, meaning like we keep in touch every day and we talk about things that are not sexually related or flirting or whatnot. If you're someone who has a successful platonic male-female heterosexual relationship, let me know, or friendship. I'm so curious, because for me, I feel like it's not, I just don't think, like, for me, it's not possible, because I just, I feel like attraction will get in the way. So yeah, that's just my take on the whole thing. I don't think guys and girls can really be friends unless the woman is gay or the guy is gay. You know, maybe that's possible. But for me, if you're heterosexual, male and female, and there's some sort of attraction with each other, maybe some, I mean, I don't know, sometimes maybe there's friends, like if you're coworkers, that's different. I'm talking about not coworkers, but two people, they meet either like mutually through other friends, or I don't know, they meet in happenstance standing in line somewhere, or they go to, or maybe like you go to the gym and you meet someone, you know, like that, or you go to like a spin class, or like a adult version of a summer camp. I don't know, you know, different ways to meet people. For me, I feel like it's not possible. I've never really had a guy friend ever. And like the one friend that I did have, I will say there was one guy who I was friends with. Actually, no, I take it back. You know what? I thought about it. No, but that's a coworker situation. It's different. Because when you're coworkers, you're by default, if you're in a work setting, you're expected to have some level of teamwork and camaraderie or rapport with the people you work with. So I take that back. But I will say there was two guys that one of them I did develop a crush on though, so I can't really say that, like we started off as friends, like we were co-workers as servers, and then he was, little backstory, he was from, I don't know if he was on a visa, but he was from, I don't know if it was the DR or Puerto Rico, but he came to work at the restaurant, he was already working at the restaurant I worked at. He was actually, funny story, he came from a wealthy family, but he wanted to separate himself from them. They owned like a ice cream factory or something in the DR, and they wanted him to like take over the business or join the business, but he didn't want to. He was really into artwork. He was actually a really good artist, and he did paintings and stuff. But he did serving on the side, like, because he wanted to come to like America just so he can have like freedom and life and whatnot. So yeah, but we did talk a little bit. We talked about art. I forgot what else we talked about. He did talk about his family. I talked about my family, and we actually got to know each other better. And then I do think because of that though, I started to like him. So I can't really say that was a successful friendship. And I think he sensed it too, because I'll never forget one day I had something in my eyebrow or something on my forehead. It was like lint or something, and I'll never forget. He was like staring at me, and he very kindly and lovingly, like, he like stopped and he's like, wait, you have something on your thing, and he like took it, and I was like, but it was very tender the way he did it. I'm like, yeah, definitely we're not. I was like, this is not, I was like, that's when I knew. And I don't know if at the time, I think he did have a girlfriend, to be honest. He never like mentioned it. He said that he was dating or whatever, but we never talked about dating. We actually just talked about very civil, platonic, general things. So that's how I knew. I was like, okay, maybe I have a friend. But then when we started to talk more, and we would go to the back of the restaurant, like the service area, and we would like hang out, and we would share funny like memes with each other and laugh, and like he would show me funny things on Instagram, then I would laugh, and then, you know, I don't know, it was fun, I will say that. But then I started to notice, like, I think there was an attraction there. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't know where he is. I know he quit the restaurant, he left. He was very like not a lone wolf, but like he kind of just kept to himself. Like he was very, 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 very chill, which was not good for a server role, because when you're a server, you have to be like on point, you know, you have to be very like there's not a moment where you can't, like, you have to keep moving. You constantly circulate the dining room. If you're not doing something, if you're standing idle and on your phone, that is like the worst thing to do. For if a manager sees you, you have to. I was always the kind of person, when I worked in hospitality, I never ever stopped. I actually just like, I always was like either doing napkin folds or rolls, or like filling salt and pepper shakers, filling the olive oil canisters, doing the sugar caddies. I was always big on upkeeping, because if I was a guest, I wouldn't want to see a restaurant in disarray. I would want to feel welcomed and, you know, whatnot. So, yeah. What else? So that was one instance. But again, that was a co-working situation in a restaurant. Same thing, same restaurant, another guy. He was very big on politics. This guy was like, and it's interesting because you would think I will be honest, so in terms of politics, I mean, a little side note, in terms of politics, I was raised liberal or Democrat. I didn't really understand politics too much. I was kind of just given a ballot and was like, here, fill out, these are the bubbles, we filled them out, this is who we choose. And I didn't even give a shit. I was just like, okay, sure. And I gave him the mail-in ballot. That was it. I signed the back with the little envelope of the thing, licked the seal, da-da-da. And then it wasn't until, like, all this political divisiveness and craziness started where I'm like, I started paying attention a little bit more. I can't really say I'm too political. And the reason why I'm saying this is a point, because the next person I considered who was a friend was very, very political, very, very, I would say, far-right, like, conservative. He talked a lot about Candace Owens. He talked a lot about, like, we talked about firearms and safety, and I was going through a really scary time at the time, so I was pro kind of firearms. I was all about, like, yeah, I'm going to get a firearm, I'm going to protect myself, whatever. So we kind of shared a common interest, like, commonalities there. We also would talk about, like, being a good server. Like, we would talk about the restaurant after and, like, how we could give better service. So, but I would say he was one of the few guys. It was funny because he was shorter. He had a very short temper, but he treated me with such respect. And I was one of the few people that when we actually spoke to each other, he was able, when I spoke to him, I was able to help him calm down and, like, de-escalate him from being, like, super, like, up here to, like, actually coming down and being, like, more level-headed and grounded and stuff. And it's funny because I was very, not to say I was super liberal and, like, democratic, but, like, he knew that, like, and I think he kind of wanted me to, like, convert to being more conservative, which it's funny because as a person, as a woman, I am kind of conservative. I'm saying politics, but I do have conservative values, but I don't, in terms of liberalism, like, in terms of, like, gender equality, and, like, you talk about homosexuality, and, like, you know, having, like, I don't know, it's, I need to research more about conservatism, like, liberalism, whatever, but, because I don't know, when it comes to, like, infrastructure and policies related to, like, fiscal policies and stuff, I do not know diddly squat about it, like, taxes, healthcare. I feel like healthcare needs to be universal. I don't want to go off on a tangent on politics, but, like, I just will say, I just wanted to mention that he was very different from me. He was very strong in his beliefs. He had very steadfast beliefs in his conservatism. Conservatism? Is that a word? And then I'm very open as a person. Like, I like to be objective. I think to be a well-informed consumer, you have to know both sides of a story, because if you're going to be provincial and narrow-minded and be like, no, my way is the highway, I'm only going to focus on my beliefs, because that's what an elitist does. A certain, that's like a nationalist or an elitist, they only see their way. They don't open the doors and possibility. Maybe, like, you don't have to, like, I'm someone, like, for instance, with this friend that I had, I can't say I always agreed with him, but we had a really healthy debate and discussion where I was like, okay, because I took bits and pieces of what he said, and I'm like, okay, let me see, some of it I agree with, and then I did my own research and education, and I'm like, you know, I listened, he was very big on Candace Owens, and I was like, okay, let me listen to Candace Owens, and I listened to her, and I was like, okay, you know, and then I listened to other people, so I listened to everything. I think that's why I kind of consider myself more in the middle and, like, independent. I don't mind sharing that, but that's kind of, I'm a registered Democrat, but I'm more, like, in the middle. That's just, I wish I can change that. I don't know how. It wouldn't be good in terms of the census, because they'd be like, oh, in terms of Democrats, they'd be like, no, we lost one. But because of stuff that I've gone through in the past, I really am just like, I'm over kind of politics. I'm just like, I told someone recently on the phone when I was talking, like, dating wise, I'm not talking to him anymore because I cut it off, but I did tell him, I was like, I wish, like, people, like, Republicans and Democrats can get in a room and, like, just, like, everyone needs in, like, Washington or something, like over the years, they need just to do, like, a yoga class and, like, sit there and, like, do shavasana and, like, breathe. They need, like, a lavender aromatherapy moment, because everyone's just, like, I feel like especially now, everyone identifies themselves by their party, and there's such like, if you don't identify with a certain party, like, God forbid, like, I don't want to get too much into politics and talking about President Trump and this and that, people are going to have their opinions on everybody. Politics is a very, 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 very dirty game. And I mean on both sides. I don't mean, like, oh, it's relegated to this. No, I mean, like, both of them. And I feel like if you don't identify with a specific, it shouldn't be like nowadays, if you don't identify with a specific party, that you're going to be, like, ousted or targeted. Like, that's just stupid to me. I think a true leader, anybody, like, if you live, it doesn't even matter at the top level, like, you need to, I know this is veering off the topic of friendships and, like, friends with benefits and stuff like that. Why is there confetti I do these weird hand gestures like this and like yay and all this confetti just like. So yeah, this is just me. That's my opinion. I know I'm kind of veering off topic for what I was going to talk about, which now we'll get to the fun topic, which is, and again, you don't have to listen to me talk. I'm just giving my personal experience of things, being someone who was kind of a late bloomer and getting into sexuality and stuff later on in my life. It's interesting because to do it as an adult, so I would say I am kind of, so in psychology, you have, there's this theorist, Erik Erikson, who talks about psychosocial development, and there's stages, right? There's like, oh my god, I should know this. Oh my god, I've studied this as a child life specialist. You're supposed to know this. Like, this is like gold. Basically, like, this is like, you need to know this stuff. But there's like trust versus mistrust, which is the first stage. Thank God I remembered that. Oh my god. I was like, God forbid another child life specialist watch this, and then they're like, she doesn't remember Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson is like the godfather of, like, not of child life, but like, we as child life therapists, like, that is like our guy. like all of our work is based around Jean Piaget for cognitive development, and Erik Erikson for psychosocial development, and also Abraham Maslow, this hierarchy of needs. So, but anyways, in psychosocial development, there's trust versus mistrust, initiative versus guilt. I feel so bad. Oh my god, I need to know this. God forbid I ever interview again for a child life specialist position. I'm kind of rusty. I've been out of the field for a while, so forgive me. If you're a child life person, or if you're a child development aficionado, forgive me, because I've been out of it, and I've gone through a lot of stress. So I need to brush up on my skills. But anyways, there's different stages, and there's a different conflict that you need to resolve between each stage. So like when you're an infant, it's trust versus mistrust. So basically, if you're an infant and you're a baby and your parent doesn't attend to your physical needs, you're going to develop mistrust in your caregivers, your primary caregivers. So the goal is to build and foster trust, right? Autonomy versus shame and doubt or something. That's the next one. And then there's initiative versus guilt. And then identity versus role confusion. Oh, no, industry versus inferiority. And then it's identity versus role confusion. That's in adolescence. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I do think, and I can wholeheartedly attest to this, in terms of social development, social emotional development, I do think I was kind of regressed. Not that I was ever diagnosed with, like, autism. I was never on the autism spectrum disorder. I never went to a neurologist. No psychologist has ever told me this, right? But I know, for me, I go, because I was painstakingly shy growing up, and I had inferiority, and I kind of looked at other kids in my class as being more popular or more worthy or prettier or whatever, I felt inferior. So because of that, I also had a lot of shame and guilt around sex. So and sex is really, it's such a blanket term. It's such a loaded topic, because sex can mean so many things. It doesn't have to necessarily mean penetration, like vaginal, penile, like, it doesn't have to mean that. It could mean anything from foreplay to the seductive aspects of it, to friends with benefits, to swinging, to monogamy, to polyamory. Like, literally, you can put sex in a thing and do a concept web, and then, like, all this stuff branches off. So, like, for me, and I mentioned this, I think, in my intro video about sex, like, where I said, let's talk about sex. I just feared, I was very scared that I would be bad at it. I was scared to be naked. My whole thing was that I was scared, because I didn't really understand the mechanics of it, how it worked, until I watched porn. And then I was, from there I was like, okay, I got this. I kind of understand it. And then the other stuff that came with it, like attraction, flirting, seduction, sexiness, all of that was kind of just off to the wayside, because I never considered myself sexy or whatever, I never used my sexual prowess ever, if you will. I kind of considered myself like a bona fide geek, which is fine, because I don't mind. I'd rather be a bona fide geek than like a super temptress seductress, because that's like when you think of the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that kind of thing, and the girl, I think her name is Jessica Rabbit or something, right? She's like the voluptuous lady with like the red hair and the boobs and like the hourglass figure. Yeah, I didn't resonate with that at all growing up. I've come a long way, a very long way. If anyone saw my photo library, they would know. I don't have anything super risque, like where like I'm super nude. It's all like covered and I'm lingerie, but like still, I give myself a pat on the back, because I've come a very long way. And I basically did my own exposure therapy in respect to that. Like, I basically told myself, I'm going to do this. I'm scared of it. I might be bad at it. I do, if I can go back in time, if I could have changed my sexual partner that I first did it with, I probably would have, because he was kind of a jerk. And I don't talk to him anymore. And I think he kind of was like almost grooming me for sex and stuff, the way he like treated me. And like basically he said, can I come on your face? And I didn't know at the time. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, can you? I don't, you know? So be mindful of who you engage with and stuff like that. I will say, so the reason why I was saying that, so psychosocial stages, I was very like, so when you're in adolescence, it's identity versus role confusion. So you go from industry versus inferiority, which is basically the stage for school-age children where they want to gain competence or mastery over a certain skill, right? So if you think of school-age children, they're learning arithmetic, mathematics, like basic computations, multiplication, right? They want to have a sense of purpose. They want to be able to do a task in school and meet a goal. And they're just learning. They're basically like sponges, and they're learning how to do things in certain processes, right? Then you go to the next psychosocial stage, which is identity versus role confusion, which is basically as an adolescent, you're trying to develop your sense of self in society. You're trying to figure out your place, where you belong, your values. You're basically developing your core values, your own self-concept, your self-image, the way you see yourself in the world. And then you're determining, especially like, so adolescents can go up to age 21, right? Maybe even 22. So you're in college, you're figuring out your major. I know I changed my major several times. And so the reason why I mention this is because dating, sex, and all that, I didn't get the jump start in it literally until my 30s. I mean, I did have crushes, I did like guys and stuff. Friends with Benefits was never something. It's okay. So when the movie came out, there's two movies I want to reference: No Strings Attached with Natalie Portman and Ashton Kutcher, and Friends with Benefits, which is with Mila Kunis and Justin Timberlake. I have yet to finish that whole movie, but basically, the idea is you engage in a casual relationship. I don't even know if you call it that, a connection. I'm not going to say relationship, because it is a relationship, but not in the traditional sense. You basically engage in a connection with somebody that's strictly sexual, but you also have this other aspect or layer of friendship. So it's not like it's cold and dry and strictly sexual, where it's just like, you're almost nothing less than like a prostitute. Right? There's no monetary transaction. There's no exchange fiscally between people. You make an agreement, a mutual agreement between two parties, where you say, I want to engage in sexual activities with you, but I want to maintain a friendship with you, right? And if I don't know how some of you people define friendship. For me, if we want to conceptualize friendship, it's people that you have an affinity for and you're amicable with, and you have common interests in things. Now, where that gets murky, this is where it gets murky. When you're in a relationship, a traditional, conventional, let's say, just for the sake of it, and if you're gay, I'm not trying to single out something, let's just say I'm using a heterosexual relationship because that's the easiest way to talk about it, right? If you're in a heterosexual relationship, or you're starting to cultivate one, right? You're planting the seeds. You go on a dating app and you seek out whatever partnership, and you because they ask you, are you looking for a life partner, marriage, intimacy without commitment? I appreciate that dating apps do that, because it helps narrow down and delineate who you want to like have a certain interaction with. This is where it gets wonky and murky. For me, this is what I've noticed, me trying to navigate the world of dating and whatnot. In conventional norms, societal norms would dictate, when you're trying to engage in a partnership or court somebody, right? If we're going to go back to more archaic times, like courting, right? When you court someone, what is that? You're extending certain like affinities towards somebody, and you're trying to build and cultivate something, a sort of like a friendship and interest, right, with somebody. And it's based on attraction, right? There is a mutual attraction. You're physically attracted to somebody. And then you start to establish certain times. I'm getting really like psychological and conceptualizing it, but this is true. Like, this is what these are things daily that I go, how do I break down, like, how do I discuss this? Because these are things that I ponder and think about. And I go, I don't know if other you people think about it too, but this is what I think about. So you think about when you're courting someone, you're establishing certain dates and times that you want to meet up with them, right? You have a mutual interest and attraction with each other. Now, I don't know, I just got a text from someone. But then you go ahead and you're setting up the dates, the times, whatever, and then based on those agreed times and dates, you meet, right? And in that interaction, in the courting stage, there's maybe some, seductive glances, there's, the coy, like, hair flip, or like, I don't know, like, you're batting the eyes, and you're giving these, like, subtle, this subtle, things or actions to indicate, like, interest in somebody, right? But there's no, like a traditional marriage, there's no advances made in terms of physicality or intimacy. You're strictly keeping it conversational, and that's it. It's a conversation, it's getting to know someone, you meet them, at a certain specified, like a coffee shop, and you say, okay, let's see if this is someone that I want to get to know. And if it is, that person may court you, whether it's a man or woman, and I'm just going to close this here, I just got a text message, I'm closing it. And then you choose, hey, I'm going to choose to partner up with you, or not partner up with you, I want to continue to see you, right? Traditionally, that's what courting is. You get to know the person, you're talking to them, and there's no physicality to it. It's strictly conversational. It's a mutual general interest and attraction with one another. Then it gets to the point where maybe you start to divulge more personal, vulnerable things, like maybe your childhood, what your childhood was like growing up, or maybe you become more vulnerable in the sense you talk about your fears and things that you fear, or maybe mishaps in your life, or very private things about things that are close to you, your family, right? And then you start to develop this immediacy, right? Immediacy is like the ability, the almost like intimacy, in the sense that you develop a closeness with somebody, right? The more you divulge, the more you share, the more rapport and the trust you build. This is like literally relationship building 101. And then based on that, if you feel like there's someone that you want to spend more time with, you start to see them more frequently. They start to become an integral part of your life, right? You start to share your life with them. It's not just like you anymore, it's the person that you're interested in. And then if it gets even more serious, if you start to see each other more often, maybe that person starts to see your family, and you introduce them. If you have kids, you introduce your kids to them. You share your schedules. You say, hey, I'm going to the gym at this time, maybe do you want to come to the gym with me? Or you start to operate as a unit versus two separate entities, right? That's what, like, traditional courting. And then when you finally, I think, have the discussion, and you're like, I'm not sure how it would go. I can't really say. I haven't had too many relationships, but I'm going from a psychological perspective and breaking it down, right? The structure of that and the steps, like the progression that, of how a relationship ensues or how it starts. And then based on that, you maybe have a sit-down discussion where you finally decide, hey, you know what? We've been seeing each other for 3 months, 4 months now, and talking to each other. I've enjoyed your company, and I would like to make this a more like concrete, solid thing. How would you feel about maybe being my significant other, or whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, however you want to put it? This is the traditional, I think, path that would dictate how a relationship is cultivated and formed. And the same thing could be said for friendship, but minus the attraction, right? That's, you get to know someone, you go to the gym, or you go to like a spin class, or you go to whatever your interests and hobbies are, and you meet someone and you're like, hey, they have a bubbly personality, hey, they have the same tattoo as me, or hey, they're wearing a necklace that I like, and then you start a conversation, and the same thing happens. You build trust with each other the more you start to divulge more personal things, right? My dog just was like, she's like, I'm sorry, Booker. I'm sorry this is a boring topic to you. Um, so, anyways, that's how a relationship or a friendship is created and cultivated, right? You start to see each other more frequently. You set up dates and times, agreed upon times, and you meet at those places. And then you start to share more personal information with somebody, and then slowly but surely you start to create this closeness with them, right? This intimate, this not just intimacy physically, but this intimate. My dog is saying just sit over here. So, um, yeah. So that's kind of how I see it, and the formation of what would be considered maybe a meaningful connection in your life. Now, this is where, and then, well, let me continue. So, let's continue on with the typical, right, conventional, traditional relationship, how that unfolds, because I didn't finish it. So, before I get into friends with benefits. So, you agree, you say, okay, yes, I'm going to choose to be your significant other. Then, maybe if you live separately, let's say you're in you're in month 10 or month 9 of this, you start to have this discussion of, hey, I know it's kind of seems short after a year of knowing someone, but let's say you're like, okay, I like you, whatever, and you want to really take it to the next level, and you're like, and maybe throughout this time where you decided to be boyfriend and girlfriend, traditionally you would say, hey, I want to engage, like you get into the physical aspects of the connection, right? This is, again, the way that I was raised, and the way that relationships were depicted in movies, whether it was Disney Channel TV, Nickelodeon, TV, what was it, the old school one, the one with the TV land. It was like, or like even TCM, like Turner Classic Movies. That's the way the progression that a relationship would go. And so, in the interim of the time where you're like, hey, I like you, you've been going on dates, whatever, you go, hey, I want to make this like a solid thing, and out of all the people that maybe other people you were seeing and you were dating, because you can court other people, right? I think in the dating phase, the way I see it, the traditional sense, when you court somebody, you get to know, you don't have to be with one person, like you don't have to court one people, you can court multiple people, but then you finally narrow it down and you're like, this is the person that I want to spend more time with and get to know more seriously, right, on a more personal level. Then you have the discussion, you're like, hey, I want to make this like an official thing. Do you want to be my boyfriend, girlfriend? In this day and age, unfortunately, in the information age, in the digital age, we have social media. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Snapchat, we have Twitter, we have LinkedIn, we have Reddit, we have all these platforms. And what happened was, nowadays we publicize those things, right? We identify ourselves by our Facebook, by our LinkedIn, by our Instagram, by our Snapchat, Twitter, right? It's like, that quote where they say, if it didn't happen on Twitter, or if it didn't happen on Instagram, it never happened. Meaning, like, if you didn't post about it, it never happened. So you can say, oh yeah, I'm dating so-and-so, but if you didn't put, like, on Facebook, marital status, single, or in a relationship with Joey, blah, 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 I'm just making up a random name, then it's almost like, no, it didn't happen. For me, I've never been one where I've ever really done that, where I've written, like, I'm in a relationship with somebody, or I'm single. Like, I just never did that. That was really personal to me, so I never did that. I know other people do, and I don't want to knock them for that. My take on that, just a little side note, once you break up with that person, the whole world knows. And then they're going to develop opinions about your thing. So it's almost like the same thing, until you've been in a job for a year or several months, at least 6 maybe to 9 months, never put it on LinkedIn. It's almost the same thing, because it's like, then if you don't stay there, you're going to look bad, like you're flip-floppy and wishy-washy. No. So it's the same thing. Like, I think if you're going to be someone, if you're an avid social media user, be cognizant and conscious about when you post certain things, or if you say that you're in a relationship with someone, be mindful, because you're opening yourself up to scrutiny, right? And everyone, because we're humans and we have egos, we're going to develop our own thoughts and opinions about people and things. And some people feel inclined to share those opinions, and sometimes those opinions are not so friendly and not so nice. So just a word to the wise. That's why I would never ever put up if I was in a relationship or something, because really at the end of the day, it's really private. It's almost a good example of this is, again, I'm getting off topic in terms of friends with benefits, but it all kind of goes together, right? You never hear about Matt Damon and his wife. Shout out to Matt Damon, because his wife was from Miami. I think he met her in Miami. I think from what I understand, she was a bartender in Miami. And I think that's like the coolest story. Celebrity, like, actor, and then bartender. Like, you know, a restaurant worker. Fairy tale, right? Anyways, you never hear about Matt Damon and his wife. You never really hear anything about Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes, except that they have their beautiful children. I think one of them's name is it Esmeralda? Or Alma? Or, there's a name. Alma means soul. But no, there's another, oh my god. I don't know, they have beautiful names for their children. But my point is you never really hear about, they don't publicize their relationship, alright? Celebrities, I feel like they have it tough because they watch them on TV, they feel like a certain closeness to them, and then when they want to live a normal life, there's like paparazzi following them everywhere. They're like, oh, you're with this person, you're with that person. I feel bad for them. But some celebrities navigate it really well, and I give kudos to them because, you know, imagine people following you around with cameras 24/7 and documenting your personal relationships. God help me. So anyways, going back to friends with benefits, traditional relationship, right? You go, okay, you start to see someone more often, you make it exclusive, right? You're like, I want you, I want to date you. And then in that time frame, traditionally, when you're boyfriend, girlfriend, you start to do the more physical activities, right? Sex, foreplay, oral, maybe. If you're really conservative, then maybe you don't. You know, if you're like someone that was like, your parents said oral sex is like the devil's work, because some people like that. Some people, they don't believe in oral sex. They think that's disgusting, and I can understand why, because you're putting your mouth on someone's genitals. But when you think about it, sexual arousal can come in numerous ways. And when you think about it even further, what about people who are in same-sex relationships? How are they going to develop sexual attraction and intimacy, right? Not to be like crude, but it's the truth. So, what's happening now, what I've noticed, a shift, and this started in middle school. I didn't really pay too much attention to it because I wasn't on social media. I didn't get a cell phone with text message capabilities until like I was maybe 13, 14, or 12, I don't know. But I couldn't go on the internet. It was strictly just for calls and stuff like that, and that was it. And I used to play like the games on it, like it was black and white, like, you know, like monotone colors. Anyways, I don't want to digress, but yeah, so that's the way the formation of a traditional relationship, right? And then you once you boyfriend girlfriend, you decide, and then maybe you go to that person's apartment. Maybe if you're in college, right? Let's say you're a college student. Maybe you're in college, you're an adolescent watching this, and you're like 17, 18, right? And your parents condone dating. God, you know, I always say, if I have a child, I don't want my daughter to date until she's like, it's okay if it's like 16, 17, if with supervision, because teenage relationships and crushes, that's inevitable. Everyone's going to go through a period where they're going to fall in love with someone, they're going to have a high school crush, and they might have a relationship. Whether that's going to last or not, and they'll be high school sweethearts, I don't know. Some people are lucky, and they meet a high school sweetheart, and they get married, and they last, and it's a fairy tale. Others, not so much. But let's say high school, 16, 17, the same thing applies, but you have supervision, hopefully, with your parents, and you're open and honest with them. You're not, like, sneaking off out of your window, trying to, like, hook up with your jock boyfriend, you know, from the football team. I don't know. You know, there's so many different scenarios and variations of things. But let's say you're in college, right? And you're a student. Maybe at that point, if you decide to be boyfriend, girlfriend, you maybe sleep over at his dorm because I had a late start with sex, but maybe you're 18 or 19 and you have engaged in sex already. I'm not going to knock you down or shun you. For me, hopefully my daughter, if I have a daughter, I will, I'm going to make sure just 18 and up, I think, or 20. That's like I think, age that someone should start having sex, because before that, it just, I think, can make things confusing. And I know it's like a rite of passage for people and guys and stuff, but that's just my take on it. But let's say, in that interim period, where you decide, you're like, hey, I want to make this an exclusive thing. Polyamory, I'm not gonna even add polyamory into the equation. I'm not gonna even go there. I'm talking about a traditional, typical monogamous relationship with somebody. We're gonna keep it at that, because polyamory is just it's like another layer, like another headache. That's just gonna be like, I'm not gonna go there. I'll discuss it in another video, but I'm not gonna, now it's, but, so yeah, let's say person A, boy A, girl A, whatever, they decide, okay, yeah, I want to be boyfriend girlfriend. She sleeps over his dorm, vice versa. And then maybe they graduate college and they're like, hey, we've been dating for 3 years, whatever, 4 years, and they're like, you know, he starts to realize maybe this is the person I want to settle down with and spend the rest of my life with. You know, you're in year 4, and you know, both families, they meet each other's families. If they don't have families, they meet their significant people in their life that had a big impact on them or whatever. And you know, maybe someone puts a ring on it and they're like, oh, I like you, I want to get engaged, let's get engaged, a year, whatever. Then they get married and whatever, you know, children. That's traditional connection, and that's universal, that's domestic, international, whatever. Now we're gonna get into the friends with benefits funkiness that is friends with benefits. So I went through the whole trajectory of how a traditional relationship is formed. Now, friends with benefits, I've been told by my own mother, my parent, who basically said that she thinks that friends with benefits starts like you're originally friends before, or you have mutual friends with each other. You've had a friendship, it's been maybe a year, several months, whatever, and then two people decide as those friends to get together and make a mutual agreement that they wanted to engage in sexual activity with each other, but keep it casual, meaning no strings attached. What do I mean by that? There's no commitment. There's no, the serious aspect of it, of getting deep and, you know, all the other steps that I mentioned in terms of courting. The courting is different. There's no courting. You're not trying to woo someone to get into a long-term partnership with them. It's strictly like casual. It's sexually based. The main thing that differentiates like friends with benefits is that it's not platonic. There is a romantic aspect, but it's strictly sexual. It's based off of like your physical attraction with somebody, and also what makes it so it's not so skanky or slutty is that you're friends with that person, so you share like common interests with them. So, you know, maybe some days, maybe you do decide to go on a date. Maybe you go to a baseball game, or you go to see a movie one day, but you're not tied to that person. They're not your boyfriend, they're not your girlfriend, they're your, and sorry if this sounds crude, they're your fuck buddy. And so you choose to, you know, maybe meet up on the weekends, and, you know, there's no, like, you don't need to talk as much. It's strictly like, okay, come to my place, let's, you know, get naked and and have fun and maybe drink some wine, and then the rest is history, right? So it's a very, very loose, non-committal situation in its basic sense. You can get a little bit further and say, in terms of exclusivity, both, and this is where it gets murky, is that if you engage in a friends with benefits relationship with somebody, or a connection, in my opinion, I can't really say I've had a successful one to date. Why? I have made the mistake of not getting to know certain individuals better. And what happens is that because of that, I find out something later on, or intuitively I sense maybe they have a girlfriend already, or they're in a separate connection, or they're separated, or whatever the case may be, or maybe we don't have commonalities. Like, I'm someone, for instance, I don't smoke cigarettes, I don't smoke weed, I don't vape, you know, things like that. So I've been in connections where later on I might have found out that someone, after I decided I connected with them on an app, that they were a heavy drinker, or they were a smoker. And again, this was after the fact. And now I go, if I would have taken the time to get to know somebody better, I would have prevented that situation happening. Luckily for me, I'm very good at, like, I don't know if that's a Virgo trait or quality, but once I find like a red flag or something about you, I am so easy. I always like to say my cutoff game is really good. I'm just like, that's it. Because once there's a deterrent, I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Because I want to attract people that I know that are similar to me in values and beliefs and stuff like that. So yeah. How to make it work, right? So I gave an idea of what a friends with benefits is, and, you know, maybe your definition is because there is, you know, when you go on Bumble, you go on apps, especially Tinder, right? Tinder is notorious for having this connotation that it's strictly a hookup app, but they do have options where you can choose and you put what your dating intentions. Are you looking for a long-term relationship? Are you looking for a long-term partner? Are you looking for a short relationship? Are you open to exploring? Do you want are you looking for marriage and life partner? Are you still trying to figure it out? Or maybe you don't even put what you want. So that's that. On Bumble, it's a little bit different. It's they still put like, well, no, it says you could put marriage, you could put intimacy without commitment. They also have on Tinder short-term fun, so you strictly know that that person just wants sex. I think because of this, I will say the dating apps themselves, because there's these options, right? There's these options to choose to distinguish what kind of partnership or connection you're seeking with someone. It's made friends with benefits, short-term relationships, casual relationships more permissible or socially acceptable. Now, is this beneficial to us as a society? I am not sure. If you do not have the emotional, mental, spiritual wherewithal, or the emotional capacity, or I should say maturity and intelligence, you are going to be susceptible or liable to having a string of failed connections, or you may have heartbreak that you never otherwise really needed, right? And as a person, especially if you're someone like me, let's say you went through trauma and you want companionship, right? You want a partnership. If you are not careful and you're not able to differentiate like lust with love, and you don't have emotional intelligence, you are liable to forming a trauma bond with that person or becoming codependent on that person. And on that this is where I think if you want to have a successful, I have yet, like I said, to have a successful friends with benefits. If you're someone where you've been strictly in a conventional like situation, like you were raised to have a conventional relationship, your parents never condoned like casual sex, things like that, and you don't really understand what I'm saying, you're like, oh, this is gross, friends with benefits, just having sex and being friends, like I'm not going to do that. You can't knock it until you've tried it. And sometimes, just honestly, I'll be honest, sometimes life just turns out where that might be better for someone. Like for me, like, you know, I do want companionship with somebody. I do like sex. I do value physical intimacy. But I'm kind of in a weird transition stage in my life. My finances aren't really exactly where I want them to be. So to have a relationship with somebody, I would have to be very upfront with them and say, hey, this is kind of what, these are the balances I owe. I don't really, I'm unemployed right now. Because when you're in a relationship with somebody, eventually, if you're looking for long term, that person is going to take on your debt, right? When you marry someone, you take on their debt, you marry their family, you marry their religion, you marry their kids, you marry their life, right? So as a person, for me, I don't want to have a man feel burdened by my financial plight, if that makes sense. So, that being said, having a friends with benefits, a more casual relationship seems, at some point, it does seem feasible for me because, again, I'm at a strange place in my life. I'm not working. My finances are kind of poopy. I like to say, my joke is I'm at bikini bottom. You know, bikini bottom is in SpongeBob. So instead of saying rock bottom, I'm at bikini bottom. There's a whole reason why for that. I'm not like, I didn't spend frivolously. I'm not like a big spender. It's just I unfortunately went through a lot of trauma and and people were not so nice, and I couldn't really, I wasn't healed enough, or healed enough to be able to withstand or hold a position. Also too, I was not treated fairly at certain jobs, so I took it upon myself to resign from them because I'm very picky about the jobs that I take and who I want to partner up with, like even in a occupational sense. So that's kind of how I've ended up where I am now. It's not like I spent money on crazy trips to Cabo or Paris, or I took a cruise. No, majority of my finances or my debt balances is rent and health care testing, because at one point I felt really, really sick. I felt like I was gonna die. I'll be honest, like my body was so tired, I was so fatigued. I almost slept majority, and you could say, oh, that could be depression, anxiety, whatever. Maybe, but I also think physically, I think I was anemic. I was severely deficient in vitamins. I also think I had either long COVID or long Lyme disease. I think I had undiagnosed Lyme disease. I might also have, like, when you talk about candida and stuff like that, all this stuff kind of plays on your psyche and your psychosocial well-being. So that's kind of why I would say for me it seems, but for me also too, I as a person, sometimes I get shameful and I'm like, I don't want I truthfully, I really do want a relationship with somebody. I would love to have a sincere, honest, formidable, meaningful, fulfilling relationship, right? Long term. But for right now, because of where I am, yeah, maybe sometimes, and sometimes that's what happens. You seek, and maybe, you never know. Sometimes you could be really lucky and you have someone that maybe it's more casual and friendly and whatnot and sexual, and that could blossom into something more tangible and formidable and permanent. You never know, right? It depends. So I don't really knock it. I will say, like I said, I haven't really had a successful one to date. And I encourage you that if that is something you are seeking, here are my how-tos from what I've learned from the past of trying to have a friends with benefits connection with somebody. Be opus. I said opus. Opus is an actual wine. Be open and honest with the person that you are going to possibly being intimate with. For me, I'm someone who I'm very cognizant and conscientious about my sexual health, especially having decided to engage in it later on in my life. When you have sex, it comes with all these other things. Like, you have to talk about birth control. You have to talk about, STD testing, right? You need to go to a gynecologist, an OBGYN, to make sure you get a pap smear, so that way, well, you need to go to an OBGYN regularly, even if you're not sexually active. Which I do recommend. If you have a child, make sure you give them Gardasil, the HPV vaccine. It comes in 3 injections. Right? PSA for HPV, Gardasil. I did not get that, so unfortunately I don't think I can qualify for that anymore. I think I got the first dose when I was in Philadelphia, because the PA that I saw, she recommended that I do it, but I left Philadelphia, so I didn't finish with the dosing. So I don't think I'm kind of like I don't meet the criteria for it anymore. But if you do have children or a teenage daughter, I highly recommend that you get them injected with Gardasil, which is to prevent HPV, right? Human papillomavirus, which can turn into cervical cancer, right? Cancer prevention. Yes. Yay. So, but yeah, when you have sex, it comes with all these other things, right? And if you are a sexually responsible human being, right, because sex is a part of life, I finally come to terms, I'm like, it's a normal thing. Do not feel ashamed of it. If you're Christian, don't feel ashamed for wanting to have sex. Or Catholic. Because I did, and now I don't. Because Jesus is you're not gonna be damned to hell for going down on a man, or like as a woman, or or even if you're gay. I would say you're not gonna go to hell either. You love is love. You like who you like. Anyways, my how-tos. If you're going to do a friends with benefits situation and you are not ready for a relationship, which is okay, I think, again, number one, you have to be emotionally intelligent and a mature human being. Why? If you are not, you're going to attract people who are immature, who are irresponsible. What does that mean for you? If you're a woman watching this, what does that mean for you? You're going to attract men who are going to be wishy-washy, evasive, ambiguous, or divisive. Meaning they are not going, or just, sorry, not divisive, deceptive. And they are going to, they're not going to take your sexual health seriously. And they are going to be careless and risky or sexually deviant. Meaning that they might have somebody, let's say, for instance, let's say you meet someone, you find them attractive, and if you don't have communication with them and you don't discuss STD testing, STI testing, HIV testing, your sexual history with them, what your boundaries are as well in terms, because what happens is that, don't forget, and I don't want to make this sound graphic or too crude or crass, but who you sleep with, like basically who that person slept with, you're sleeping with those same people. What do I mean by that? They were, if you're a female and you're heterosexual, right? If you're straight and you are having sex, a guy enters you, right? We're going to get technical here. A guy enters you, you're sleeping with every other person that he slept with, because his dick, right, was inside someone else, inside another woman's vagina. So you have that, even if they take a shower or whatever, like technically the vaginal fluid, the cells, all that are in the vaginal canal, whatever, all that is still on, and to some extent maybe on him. And if they have not been careful, you're liable to contracting that same disease that maybe, because that's how it's passed down, right? That's how STDs and HIV and everything is passed down, by having multiple sexual partners, right? And not being sexually responsible or health conscious. So that's why protection is key. Condoms. I actually, for me, I might this sound silly, and actually it's funny, on, I don't know if it was on TikTok, there was a guy who I was like, I actually commented, I was like, what an upstanding man. He had a coochie container. He had a little container in his bathroom, and it had tampons, it had pads, I don't know if it had spermicide, it had like all these little accoutrements that were necessary for female health, reproductive health. In the same token, I do have a little pouch, because I was told so many times by men, oh, I can't stay hard with a condom on, I don't want to wear one. And basically what I learned, I didn't know what raw dogging it meant until later on, until I had a family member tell me, yeah, that guy's a piece of shit, and he was a scumbag, and he was probably married or in a relationship or something, and he didn't want to wear a condom because he can't literally stay hard. Because when you're in a relationship, right, you don't need the condom, right? If someone's on birth control, your girlfriend's on birth control, you don't need a condom. I mean, you could if you want an extra layer of protection, but if she's on the pill, if she's has an IUD, or if she does both on the pill and IUD, or like a next one on situation, a guy can technically, if you're in a monogamous committed relationship, he doesn't really need to wear a condom. Not to say that's bad, but like I condone protection. I'm not anti-protection, but these are the discussions you have to have with someone. Even if you're a boyfriend, girlfriend, I still think that's important. Sexual health is important, because we don't need a widespread epidemic of HIV, people contracting HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, trichomoniasis, or whatever it's called. So that's that. There has to be communication. You have to talk about, for me specifically, if I'm going to choose to be in a sexual connection with someone, I want to make sure that we make a mutual agreement that it's going to be exclusive to us. Meaning, like, and you say, oh, but that's a relationship. You're going to choose, like, you're going to tie someone down and make sure that, like, he can't sleep with anyone else. That's not fair. What I say, the caveat is if you're going to do a casual connection, remember, there's no commitment, there's no exclusivity. So, basically, what I say is, I'm sorry, I just got another text message and I got distracted. I get distracted so easily. I need to work on this. Anyways, so what I like to say is, if I'm going to do friends with benefits with somebody, there has to be honest, open communication. And I'm realistic that men, like I said, are visual creatures, and I might not be their forever person. I might just be, like I said, if it's friends with benefits, it's a temporary thing, or maybe it will be. Maybe it's a temporary thing that can turn long term. It's like when you think about it, like with jobs, it's a seasonal position, but maybe you make it like a permanent thing after you get to know somebody for a while, right? Because some people, like for me, for my thing, I would want to make sure I have a good, because I didn't have sex for a good majority of my life, I want to make sure that sex is something that I have a good physical connection with somebody, because if I'm going to be with them, like, I want to make sure we have great chemistry, the sex is really good. It sounds so selfish, but it's so true. And if any of you say, oh, it's not true, that no, we all know we've been horny, we have hormones, we all want to do it. So that's a lie. It's just you don't want to be sexually deviant. That's the thing. I think it's okay to like to have sex, but I think being sexually deviant and irresponsible, like swinging, orgies, multiple sex partners, that kind of stuff is not what I don't think is good. So I will say, having an open, honest communication with someone is key. What I like to talk about is what I tell the person usually if I am going to do something casual. I'm going to say, well, I'd like for it to be between us only, but you can talk to other people, because we're not boyfriend, girlfriend, we're not exclusive, like committed, right, relationship wise, but we just want to have fun with each other. Essentially, the idea of friends with benefits is you're having fun, it's casual, I keep getting text messages. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyways, okay, I'm sorry. I just got a text message from somebody. I don't know if I need to like silence my computer or something, because it comes up on my computer. So I'm recording this on my laptop, and it comes up on the thing, and I'm like, I lose my train of thought. It's very important. When I have a download, like a spiritual download or something, and I'm on a roll, I don't want to lose my train of thought. So, yes, I will say communication is so important. Now, you might be someone and you're like, I don't care, like, they can sleep with whoever they want. Please, for the love of God, so we do not have a pandemic where everyone gets sick. And here's the other thing too. Sex leads to babies, right? That's why we have sex. We procreate, we fornicate, because also it's an expression of attraction and intimacy between two people, but also it leads to babies, human babies, right, with needs and wants, that cry, that poop, that pee, that need diapers, that need love and need nurturing. And if you're not careful, anyone else, you can get pregnant. And one thing I swore to myself is that if I'm going to bring a baby into this world, I want to make sure that I am financially stable, I'm mentally stable, I have like my head on my shoulders, which I generally do as a person. But that child is going to be, you're going to be someone's mother, someone's father, and they are going to look to you for everything. If you have a dog, you understand, especially a Velcro dog like this lady over here. You're going to understand what I mean. And they're going to attach themselves to you because they're not going to know any better. And if you're someone who is immature, if you don't know the direction of your life, let's say you're like me, if you're unemployed, if you're trying to find a job, you don't have income coming in, what is that going to do to a child? Your needs, your sexual needs, should not take precedence over responsibility and maturity. For example, I'm in my weekend right now, I'm in my fertile window, right? Because I have my natural cycles. Let's take a look. I should be a spokesperson for natural cycles. I don't even know. So, see, right now it says use protection, right? So basically a little bit about natural cycles. This is what I meant in my vlog, for my morning vlog. This is what it looks like. So April's here. We're towards the end of April. You basically log it in every day. And the red days are like no-go days. They're like the use protection, be careful days. Again, this is a non-hormonal birth control system. And then you have these days here, you log in your temperature with the thermometer, and then they have you test your ovulation to see if you're ovulating, and then that goes into the algorithm, etc., etc., etc. But my day today, it says today's cycle day 21, use protection ovulation day. It would not be smart of me, it would not behoove me to engage in at least penetrative sex. Not like if there's any chance of any semen or anything entering my vaginal canal and that's not actually how it happens, but in my mind that's the shmee, and then the sperm goes meow and it like creates a right, and then it goes in the uterus and then a baby. I'm just saying that's, I don't want a little swimmer sperm, and then they find an egg and they're like, yay, and then a baby's formed. I love babies. I do. I would love to have a baby. I don't know if of my own, but I always have wanted to adopt or foster, because there's so many children in the foster system that are born to like drug, opioid addicted parents, and, or the parent, maybe they were raped or they were younger and they weren't financially stable enough. I just think, for me, I'm a big proponent of adoption and foster children. So, and even though I know people want to have children naturally, I feel like sometimes I'm like with my neurospicy brain, with my trauma and all the other shit I've gone through, I don't know if I want to reproduce another one of me. I've already gone through enough as a person, like bullying. I don't want to pass that on to my child. So, but I'm saying that it would not be responsible of me to go and sleep with someone right now, even if I was horny as all hell, because note to self, to the women, by the way, if you're going to do friends with benefits, do not ever hook up with someone if you're ovulating, because what's happening is your brain is being flooded with estrogen and progesterone, and so you're like at a height, your sex drive is going to be heightened. It's just scientifically, clinically known. So be very mindful of that. But going back to talking about how to be successful in a friends with benefits thing, communicate with your partner. Don't, as a woman, if we're talking about a straight presenting relationship, do not force a man to be your boyfriend, because if you're already agreeing in a mutual agreement consensually between both parties, and he's saying, yeah, this is not going to be an exclusive thing, like, we'll be exclusive with each other hooking up, but like, don't expect him to do boyfriend things. Meaning, what do I mean by that? Let's go back to my example of the traditional conventional relationship. Boyfriend things, morning texts, talking on the phone for hours, um, buying him, like, driving, like, if you're sick, he drives to your apartment to bring you soup. If you're on your period, he, like, buys you tampons or pads, or, you know, like, different things like that. Or, like, you go out on dates and he takes you, like, to, like, it's your birthday and he, like, you know, takes you to, like, this fancy, I don't know, steakhouse. I don't know, you know, stuff like boyfriendy stuff, relationshipy stuff. And the same thing said for the woman, you know. I've realized I've done very wifey like things for men who did not deserve that. I'm someone, I love to cook. I've recently realized I love to cook. I love to bake, I love to cook. If you're doing a friends with benefits thing, I'm sorry, but, like, if you do the cooking thing, that's okay. Like, if it's a fun activity, you do it together. But, like, sorry, that's actually a bad example. Cooking is okay. I think if you're gonna do friends with, like, that's okay because you're doing a fun activity, it's recreational. But a good example of this, I had a situation when I was in Virginia. I decided, I said, you know what, I'm gonna do. It was actually, I think, my first real friends with. It didn't turn out friends with benefits. It was intended to go that direction, but he said allegedly he was separated from his wife. Yes, he was still married. They were together because she said that his insurance benefits were better, more feasible for her, so they stayed married, but they were separated, I guess, legally. So they stayed together because of his insurance benefits. I was like, okay, what's your intention later on? Do you want to divorce whatever her or whatever? So, and I did ask that because I'm not, I for one, this is me, I don't want to sleep with someone if they are in a relationship already or if they're married. That's just because on my conscience, I would feel so guilty. I cannot do that. Even though, like, even if it's no one's going to find out, because there's things where people, you can get a messaging app, you can message on Instagram, no one would ever know, right? Especially if people live at different opposite ends of the earth. Like, let's say someone's work dictates that they're in a certain area and their wife is in Florida. I don't know, their partner, whatever. And then they would never know about it, right? But for me, I would feel guilty because I have a very strong moral compass and, like, moral conscience. I can't do that. Just for me, I would feel like I would cry if I found out, and I think I actually did, without, not intentionally, like in the past, the people I paired up with or hooked up with, they were either married possibly or in a partnership. I was more angry, if anything, at that like, I wanted to help the woman and find the woman and tell her, hey, your husband is a lying, cheating son of a bitch sneak, unless they're in an open relationship. That's different. Some people are in open relationships, I'm not gonna whatever, but the men that I've been with before, they've told me, no, I'm single, I'm not married, blah, 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 blah. But I could never intentionally cheat with someone. That's just me. Maybe you're different from me. I don't know. Maybe you're more rebellious, more ballsy. You do you. I'm just talking about from my perspective as, like, a modest, like, mature, emotionally intelligent woman, right? But yeah, you have to, I think, like, and oh, that's what I was gonna say in terms of wifey stuff. When you're doing friends with benefits, don't expect the guy to do boyfriendy things. Don't impose him. Don't force him to do boyfriendy things. On the same token, as a woman, don't do the wifey stuff. And what I mean by that, with my scenario, like I said, with this dude that was separated, he, like I said, was together with the woman for the insurance. I was really attracted to him. It was actually probably the best sex I've had. The best sex I still to this day, I found out I took a photo of the bed after the aftermath of it. Not to be too whatever, we had sex on the floor. It just happened to turn out that way. There were sheets everywhere. It was the best sex I think I ever had because he was like, I don't know, it felt so like, and I didn't have an orgasm or anything, it was just the connection. It just felt really good. And he didn't, like, treat me like trash. He didn't ram into me. He was just really tender and stuff. And I don't know, for me, it just, and there was one point where, not to be too graphic, where we didn't even, like, we were just, it was like the tip of it. It wasn't even, it barely, and we were just holding each other and it felt so good. I don't know, maybe you like the crazy deep. I'm kind of different. Because I practice the more, like, spiritual tantric aspect of sex versus, like, the eat, funny, fuck. So, anyways, long story short, he ended up staying. It was the day off for the job that I was at. I was working at a school. It was the day off, and we had to go in for, like, a professional development teacher meeting or something. And I let him stay at my apartment. I know that sounds crazy. We were still we were talking, but it was a Tinder thing. We met on Tinder. And I had an extra toothbrush. I let him use a toothbrush. And I said, help yourself to whatever. And I cleaned his clothes for him. I don't remember if I gave him like a snack to go. I was basically doing wifey things or girlfriendy things for a casual hookup kind of situation. This is where you have to, like I said, you have to be able to have emotional maturity, because if you're agreeing to keep it casual with somebody, keep it that way. Because you're going to end up heartbroken if that person decides to say, hey, you know what, I found somebody, or I'm not really interested, or you end up realizing that you don't really care for them that much and you have to cut it off with them. You're going to feel sad about it. If you're a normal functioning human being with a heart. There are some people out there who don't have any remorse, any guilt, any shame, and they are sociopaths because they are apathetic, not empathetic. So, but if you're a normal human and you care about humanity and you have a heart and you care about people and you care about yourself, do yourself a solid and don't do the wifey things. Don't do the boyfriendy things. Because you're at the end of the day, you're going to be selling yourself short, because you're going to be giving all this time and attention to somebody that it might just be very transient. It might be temporary. Or you might give more into it and they might not be even that invested. They just really want the physical aspects of it, right? Maybe not even the friend part of the benefits. They just want the benefits, right? This is why I think it's good to have a discussion beforehand, because I do think we are, especially now, to take it to a sociological perspective, women ourselves, I've noticed this trend that we are taking more assertiveness and dominance over our lives, right? Women are getting married later. They're kind of pushing the glass ceiling. We're taking control of our reproductive health, right? So in that token, some women may not want to get married right away. They might not want to get married, period. Look at I say Russell Crowe, but it's not Russell Crowe. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn. They've been together for years and they're not married. I was going to do another video on marriage later on and talk about that and my perspective on it, because I used to be the kind of girl, when I went to my Nana's house, we would watch TLC, Say Yes to the Dress, and what's that other? 4 Weddings. There was literally a competition where they would get 4 women who were strangers. They'd put them together and they would publicize their wedding, and then they would basically what is this? Oh, they would compete with each other, and then they rank each other's wedding, and then whoever wins basically gets a honeymoon to like Cancun. I don't know, some random tropical Caribbean paradise. And that was it. It was a really fun, entertaining show. I used to be all like, oh my god, I want to have like the white. And it's so funny to me, why do we wear white? None of these people are virgins. Like, why do we wear white? I'm like, I'd rather wear like a pink, like boho, like tie-dye. I don't know, I'm weird. I'd rather elope. I'm not gonna get into that. I don't really want a wedding. I don't want people to watch me walk down an aisle. I just want to be like, hey, let's see if this works. Are you like, do you want to do this? Okay. Because now I really, after dating and just stuff that I've gone through, I'm just like, can the person show up? Are they who they say they are? Do you follow through? And that's it. So, yeah. That's just me. But going back to the friends with benefits thing, communication is key. I think you do need to agree upon certain parameters. Like, one thing I would say is, like, for me personally, I tell if I'm doing it with a guy, I say, I do want to connect with, maybe we agree to meet on the weekends, and, we can talk here and there and hang out and stuff. But you're more than likely, like, I'm able to talk to other men, and you're able to talk to other women, if they're straight, hopefully they're straight. If you are a heterosexual woman and you're looking for a straight man, yeah, so that's kind of how I see it. And you have to give yourself leeway. Like, again, don't expect boyfriendy things from someone that you're doing a casual relationship with, because there's no commitment, there's no exclusivity. Now, if you want the exclusivity you know, I will say this. There's a reason why I think friends with benefits would be difficult. It can be successful, possibly makes brighter, is because sex is a very intimate act, right? You're naked, you know, when we're babies, we're born naked, right? But then we go through puberty, men's testicles descend, we get I was gonna say women get facial hair. Well, if you have PCOS, but, you know, but shout out to the people with PCOS. If you find a way to get, without doing laser, to get rid of chin hairs, let me know, because I need that. But, you know, testicles descend, a man's voice deepens, they get the Adam's apple. A woman, we develop pubic hair, our breasts develop, touching my boobs. But, you know, you get the idea. We go through puberty, we evolve, right? You have your sex hormones, your gonads, right? Your gonads are the testes and the ovaries, right? So, you know, because of that, that's why we wear undergarments. We wear, you know, bras, underwear, boxers, because we're not going to be, unless you're a nudist and you're part of a nudist colony, you have propriety and you have modesty and you cover these things up. And if you're an exhibitionist, I can't relate to you, because I'm not going to walk around naked, unless you're in your home. That's a different story. But generally speaking, you know, you have your private parts. That's why they're called private parts. And when you engage in sex with somebody, you're exposing these parts of yourself that are private to another individual. That's really, really super, super vulnerable. Sorry. That's like, you know, you're really, really vulnerable, like, with someone, right? Because you're showing them, right? If you're a man, right? If you're a man, like, if you're watching this, I don't know what man's gonna watch my channel, but it's more geared towards women, if anything, unless I become a dating coach for men, which I don't know, maybe I will. You never know. It'll be funny. The girl that was a 32-year-old virgin because of dating coach and a sex therapist for people. Go figure. You never know where life will take you. But, you know, you're exposing these parts of yourself that are kept private, right, to another individual. That's super vulnerable. Some people are exhibitionists. They're very easy to, like, boop, boop, you know, here I am. But generally speaking, there's a lot of vulnerability that comes with that. There also, scientifically, because I do like medicine and healthcare, when you're skin to skin, and I learned this when I got certified to be an infant massage instructor. When babies are placed on a father's chest or mother's chest when they're born, they do that it's called skin-to-skin bonding, right? It's called kangaroo care. And basically, and I worked in a NICU, so, you know, that's how I learned. But you place them on the chest, excuse me. I'm going to use the proper verbiage. And the baby's heartbeat, and I'm going to get to a point where I'm saying this, the baby's heartbeat synchronizes with the mother's. It actually, the skin-to-skin contact, the baby senses the mother's milk coming in, and it almost initiates the lactation process in a mother, like in the breasts, right? So it's a very, again, that's in a more like mother-daughter, father-daughter-son bonding sense, you know, infant baby mother-parent sense, right? Bonding. But I want to apply the same principle to, like, with sex, because it's a very, very intimate act, right? And some people, I think we treat it very casually and frivolously, and some people are very easy to, like, fuck somebody. But if you are someone who has respect and reverence for the human body, and you know anatomy, when you're skin to skin with somebody, especially when you orgasm, your brain literally shoots off. That's why sex is so pleasurable, is because your brain literally shoots off dopamine, serotonin, maybe, I don't know if epinephrine, but oxytocin is definitely one of those major hormones. It's basically the bonding hormone. Oxytocin is produced, like I said, when a baby's skin to skin with their parent, and it's also produced during, like, orgasm and closeness, right? That's why when you're with someone and you're intimate with someone, you start to develop amorous feelings for them, because the biological aspect, or the neurological aspect of it, dictates that you are literally going to form scientifically. If people studied sex, and which I think there was the scientists, the Kinsey studies or something, they studied sex and human behavior. But literally, you shoot off oxytocin. So that's why I tell you, you have to be so, so mature to be able to do a friends with benefits thing successfully, because you're liable to either falling in love with someone because you're being vulnerable with them, you're sharing your body with them. Who's not going to be vulnerable? Unless you're like a robot and like you have no emotion, bro, you are going to feel vulnerable. Or maybe unless you're a sociopath. If you're a sociopath and you don't give a shit about people's feelings, maybe you can be like fuck, 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 fuck. You know, I can't do that. I care about people, even if it's on more of like a surface level. So I will say that, you know, be mindful of that. If you've never studied the neurological or physiological response of sex or just human behavior in general, I enlightened you. There is a chemistry concept that goes into it. So that's why when you're cuddling with someone, the after sex, right, feels really good, because you're holding and you're skin to skin, the same way that a baby's placed on a mother's chest. That's why it feels so good, and you feel closer to someone after that. So I encourage you, especially as a woman, or a man too, if you do not know in your life, and it's okay to be in a period of uncertainty in your life, but if you're someone who you feel like you're immature, or if you lack maturity, if you lack direction in your life, and again, that's okay. It's okay to be uncertain, right? And you navigate your way through life. But if you don't engage in a sexual connection with somebody if you don't have the emotional maturity to do so, because it's going to crash and burn, right? Because you're either going to get too codependent on someone. You can form a trauma bond with them if you're like me, if you went through trauma and bad stuff, and then you're gonna put all these expectations on someone that they might not be able to fulfill, right? And vice versa, they might do the same thing to you. So I think everyone, you know, we all go through phases and stages of our life, but I think you need to be mindful of that, because you're susceptible to either getting your heart broken because someone might not feel the same way about you that you feel about them because you had sex with them. And, you know, and rightly so. A guy shouldn't have to, you know, especially, like I said, with friends with benefits, it's very, it's not, actually it's complicated, but, and I have met people when they've told me that I've matched with them, and they said that they had successful friends with benefits, and I'm like, are you still friends with them? Like, I asked him, like, do you mind, like, are you still friends with them? Like, do you have, and he's like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I've, you know. But he was a very free spirit. I think that, I forgot his name, but there was a guy that was a very free spirit, and, you know, he was just, you know, he was more laissez-faire about it. He's like, people come and go, I'm here for the moment, and yes, come to me, and my body is for everybody. You know, there's people who are like that. I'm more, I covet my body, and I care about who I share it with. And if people would say, oh, but you've slept with this many people or whatever, I'm like, yeah, well, I was doing research. And I was also doing basically my own form of exposure therapy, and, you know, I've learned from my experiences, and I want something more substantial and formidable and meaningful. So, but if you really want to do it the right way, I would say definitely communicate with your partner, the person that you're going to do this with. And also, too, I would say, yeah, be friends with them before. Like, genuinely get to know somebody. Because to me, I have a theory I've determined. It was a theory, right? But I found, I can surmise that the best sex I've had or happens when I've had a genuine connection with somebody. Meaning, like, it's not just like a fly-by-night, oh, I'm on Hinge, oh, you're cute, do you live nearby? Yeah, let's do this. And then it's just like, you wake up and you're like, what did I just do? Because I felt like that. Like, I'm like, because then the guy goes and he goes on his life and doesn't give a shit about you. You were just another girl. Because he's able to detach and, you know, separate lust from love. So, you know, that's the way I see it. Maybe I'm sure anyone, if you watch this video, you're like, if you're like a porn star, you're like, girl, oh my god, she's being so, like, extra. I guarantee you, there's gonna be people, if they watch this, they're gonna be like, oop, delete, like, not interested, you know. They'll get there's these 3 little dots by YouTube videos. They're like, I'm an expert at that. I've gotten because with hacking and stuff, I used to see all the weird stuff on my thing. I used to be like, boop, nope, not interested. So, yeah, so, those are my 2 cents about it. If you've had successful friends with benefits, I'm curious to know what you did to make it successful, how you were able to separate the two, if you're still friends with that person, so you can share with me. I don't have my email on this YouTube page, but I'm very, because again, I came from a background in sociology. I love to learn. I love researching. I love human behavior. I love finding out the why behind the what, and so yeah. But I just, when I say communication, I mean, let me break that down really quickly before I stop the video. Have boundaries, like explain what you're okay with and what you're not okay with sexually. Number one, I always say, like, anal sex, that's a no-go for me. Orgies, no-go for me. Threesomes, no-go for me. Swingers and sex club, no-go for me. Having other people watch me have sex, no-go for me. Lesbian porn, no-go for me. I've literally been asked by people, can you watch, like, will you finger yourself while I watch lesbian porn? Like, a guy said, can I watch lesbian porn and you finger yourself? And I'm like, no! I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. No. Like, why are we, no. Like, unless we watch something together and we want to practice something that you see in the video, I'm not gonna do that with you. Like, no. Me touch myself and you're watching porn. What the fuck? No. I was like, and I can't believe I kept that conversation going. I should have just been like, delete. But no, because I'm nice and I give people the benefit of the doubt. I give them too much time. I'm like, boop. I should have said no. So state your boundaries, state what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, right? Number one. There's that whole idea of have a safe word. I haven't really done that with anyone yet. Like, basically you say, like, a safe word if it's getting to be too much. That's what, from what I understand about it. It's a very basic understanding, but it's like you say, like, banana, or like apricot, or wazoo. I don't know. I don't know what a safe word is. I've never used one. So, I would say that, and then what else to make it clear? Obviously protection. Know that withdrawal is not a, like, safe and secure protective thing. Also, for women, if you are with someone and the guy tells you they've had a vasectomy, ask for proof. I am not kidding. I've been in situations where I swear to God, the guy says I'm snipped, I don't have to worry about whatever, and I literally, I kid you not, and this is very vulnerable, I even thought once I was pregnant because I did the pregnancy test because I was feeling a little funky, and he told me he had a vasectomy, that he can't have children, and that he was, like, divorced or something. This was back in Virginia, and I swear to God, I thought, it was a very faint line, and I go, oh my God, what if I'm pregnant? But the following week, I felt really sick after, and I go, oh my God, did I have a miscarriage? I literally, so this is why it's important to talk, because things like that happen. You can have a miscarriage. What if you've never had a miscarriage before, and you're at home, and you're, like, feeling horrible, you're having cramps, and you need to go to a clinic or a doctor, and then you have to say, yeah, I had, and they say, oh, who's your partner? What were you doing? You're going to say, oh, I went on a Tinder date, and I had sex, and, you know, he said that he had a vasectomy, and he was sterile when he wasn't. You don't want to be in that situation, trust me. And again, not to say you care about other people's opinions and stuff like that, but it would be kind of embarrassing, especially for me, if I went into an ER and I'm like, oh, I'm having abdominal cramps, and I'm bleeding, and maybe I'm miscarrying, and I have to say, and they're like, well, who's the father? And you're like, I don't know. You know, like that you don't want to pull a Mamma Mia. You know, in the movie Mamma Mia, basically Meryl Streep's character, she has Amanda Seyfried. I forgot the name of the girl, the main, I just know her as Amanda Seyfried. She's a very distinct actress, so, like, but anyways, Amanda Seyfried, like, Meryl Streep didn't know who the father was, or who her father was. She invites 3 dads over for her daughter's wedding in Mykonos, or whatever, Santorini, Greece, and then the whole thing is about them trying to figure out, but they all realize that they ended up loving the girl as if she was their daughter, and, yeah, so, but I don't want to pull a Mamma Mia, you know. I don't want, like, a future child of mine to be like, you know, but on the same token, you don't want to go into an ER and be like, I'm having a miscarriage, and they're like, who's the father? And you're like, I don't know, it was a Tinder date. And they'll be like, you're too loose. You need to close your legs. You have no morals. You don't want to be that person. Because I guarantee I've been the person on the other side of it where I've worked in, I'm not a nurse, but, like, I've worked in the ER, and people talk. They may never say they do, but I promise you, the nurses talk. Trust me. So you don't want to be on the other side of it, and plus you don't want to be viewed or demeaned that way. So, you know, have a discussion, talk, like, literally, and I'm not kidding, if they say, if someone says, also too, and I might start doing this. It might seem too very meticulous and anal to do it, but like, and I don't mean anal like anal, so I mean like anal like neurotic, but I might start asking the person to get like, and hopefully you don't fake a fake report, but to say, hey, are you clean? Like, do you have any STDs? Because I'm telling you, you do not want to end up with herpes 1 or 2. It's the simplex virus. Like, you get genital warts. I don't have that. But you get cold sores. You get genital warts. You're sick. You're basically sick. Like, you feel sick. You maybe get fevers. You may get sore throats. You don't want that. Like, I don't want that for people. I don't want people to get sick. So it's like, be mindful of that. That's why I say sex is a really all-encompassing, like, there's so many facets to it, right? So I'm just trying to help people if, like, you do decide to have a casual relationship with someone. Maybe you're into one-night stands. I don't know. I would feel kind of shallow if I just, like, hooked up with someone randomly. I'm like, I don't know your name. I don't know your last name. But you were inside me. I couldn't do that. And unfortunately, I will say that people that I wanted to have a more casual relationship, it turned out to be a one-night thing when it wasn't supposed to be, because I didn't do the vetting process of it, right? So, and if a guy ever tells you, I'm not going to give you my STD, like, I'm going to go to an STD report, the one guy who I think, I will say, the one that I had the best sex with, this was back in Virginia, the guy that we were on the floor and he was married to the person for insurance or whatever, he was one of the few, if not the only one, that said, I can go get STD testing if you want me to. Like, literally, he was the only guy that said, I'll get the STD if you want me to. And I was like, my heart. And it sounds so like stupid but I'm like, my heart. I'm like, he was gonna look out for my sexual health. Like, to me, that was really attractive, and that made me want to sleep with him more. But that's just me. So I would definitely say, yeah, communication, have discussion about what's permissible, what's not permissible between the both of you. Talk about what would happen if you do decide to talk to other people and you want to hook up with another person. Say, I'm the type of person, if that happened, I tell the person, at least let me know, because I don't want, like, I'm the kind of person, I don't sleep with multiple people at the same time. Like, it's not like I'm with, I don't know, Scotty, and then Bobby, and Willie, and, I'm just giving random names, but, I've never been with a Scotty, or a Bobby, or Willie. But yeah, that's, that's me. I'm not going to talk to someone and be like, oh, let me look for whatever. I will say, I think it's okay to still, if you're like on the dating apps and you're talking to someone and you're considering like a casual thing or maybe even a romantic thing, like a long-term thing, I think it's okay to talk to other people. Where I think it's not okay is if you're hooking up with multiple people at the same time. No bueno. That's just my opinion, because it's like, that's so sexually deviant and sexually risky. And it's very kind of sex swinger orgy-ish. And if that's your thing, if that's what floats your boat, be careful, because you might end up pregnant. Or you may get someone pregnant if you're a man. And I don't think as a man you want to pay child support. And if you're married to them, you have to pay alimony. And babies cost a lot of money. And time. And effort. And then you have to be in their life for like forever. Fatherhood is not like, oh, you're cute, what a cute little kid you are. No, that kid is going to look up to you for the rest of their life, and you don't want to be an absentee father or a deadbeat dad who doesn't give a shit about their child, because I've been the one to have to clean up your dirty work and do damage control as a psychosocial support specialist or child life specialist, because I've been on the other side of it where I've seen the kids from the broken homes, or the fathers were not present and it's a single mother, and I'm just like, damn it. I'm like, because they don't have the nurturing that they deserve. So if you don't want a child, if you want to stay the bachelor life and be single, use protection, have communication with your partner, be willing to do the STD testing if necessary, if that's what you guys discuss. Discuss what's permissible and what's not permissible. And also to care about the person's feelings. I know that may sound silly, but like, it's true. Like, unless you're like a sociopath and you don't give a shit about other people's feelings, which I hope you're not. I don't want, God forbid, a sociopath or psychopath that does come across my stuff. Maybe I'll enlighten you for a little bit, So, yeah. That's my take on friends with benefits. Whether it's successful or not is up to you. I have yet to have a successful one, and I'm kind of at the point in my life. I will say this. So let's take this a step further. I'm a 33-year-old woman. I've come across profiles on Tinder, which I'm not going to show for the sake of it, for it's like, in Finding Nemo, where they're like, when he's like, where are you from? And he's like, an anemone. And he's like, an anemone. And I feel like when I say anonymity, I can't say this word. For the sake of anonymity, I'm not going to say, like, certain people's, like, show pictures and stuff, but I've seen men who are in their 40s, in their 50s, pop up on my feed in Tinder. And they even have as their thing, they don't even have dating intentions. They don't even put a bio, or they don't even put a picture of them. It says, like, seeking companionship, E&M, ethical, non-whatever. And I'm like, so you obviously know that some of them might be cheating. But if you're in your 40s or your 50s and 60s and 70s and you're still seeking casual partners, like, friends with benefits is a thing that, like, if you're in college, like a teenager, like late adolescence, like early 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s, I think it's acceptable. But if you're in your 40s, even late 30s, or 50s or 60s, and you're sitting there and you just want a casual hookup with somebody and you don't want to get deep and vulnerable with someone, I think it's time you need to go to therapy, because, like, I don't know what person wouldn't want a strong, fulfilling, rewarding relationship with someone, like, because I have seen that. There's people who live the bachelor lifestyle, like, where I go on Tinder, I'm like, bro, they're fucking, like, 42, and they're out here, like, just, with their, like, cars and stuff, and sometimes it's really more affluent men, and they're showing off their cars, and they're like, yes, I'm on the private plane, and I'm from Dubai, and, I have my harem, and I'm like, bro, like, I'm not gonna date you. Like, I don't care what your smolder is, I don't care what you have in your bank account, I am not gonna sleep with you. Like, grow up. That's just my opinion. Maybe you're not. Maybe as a woman, you're like, oh my god, sugar daddy. I don't do that. I do wanna work. I don't wanna have to rely on someone to fund my life. I wanna fund it. So, and mind you, this is coming from a woman who's, like, in the pits, in bikini bottom, right, in terms of finances. So, but I do stay hopeful. I do stay proactive and stuff like that. But, yeah. So that's my tips for today, and it'd be interesting to hear other people's stories about, like, what they've gone through, like, in terms of dating and stuff. And but I did want to mention that too. Like, if you're in your 40s and late 30s and you are just casually, there are men too. I will say this: there are men who do the, just be mindful. This is a PSA to women out there. I'm gonna get a little bit closer. Be mindful. There are some men out there who they're older and they are married already, and they're gonna come off as single, or maybe separate or divorce, and they're not, and they're going to use the Tinder and the Bumble as a means to have a physical connection with you, and then they're going to want to stay friends with benefits with you because they can't offer an emotional relationship because they're already in one. They already have their person, they already have their partner, like their marriage partner, and they're cheating and they're seeking, comfort and physical intimacy with you because probably most likely they got bored, or they're not happy in their relationship, so they're stepping out of it disloyally and with infidelity and coming to you. So be very, very mindful. There is an app called Tea, or Spill the Tea. I deleted it because you need a membership to it, but it's actually pretty ingenious. It's like made by women for women, where they actually it's like basically the wanted poster for, like, dating. Like, basically they get the profiles, and then the women, like, say, no, don't date this guy, like, he'll woo you and dine you, and then he'll screw you and then leave you, like, or he's a sociopath and he'll lie to you, or he's married and has 2 children or 5 children, so be mindful of that in that respect, because men do that. They will lie and they will say everything you want to hear to try to get you into bed with them. So you have to do your homework, build your spiritual senses. Use your your third eye. Use your intuition, right? Use your discernment. Maybe you don't have to be psychic, but use your discernment. Put your little investigative cap on. It's okay to Google someone. Ask them. Like, I realize now I need to, like, I'm not going to sleep with someone unless I know their last name. End of story. Like, I am forever, the rest of my life, I go, if I ever sleep with anyone or I engage in a connection, I have to know their last name. Because think about it. Imagine you're letting someone into your space, into your home. You don't even know their last name. You don't know where they live. You don't know what their most recent work history is like. And if they say, oh, I'm a pilot, but they're really like a plumber, like, or, you know, they're a bank teller, but they're, I don't know, a professor at night or a teacher, like, you want to know who you're with, right? Because it could literally, on the scary side of it, you could be sleeping with the enemy. You could be sleeping with a serial killer, God forbid. You don't want to, you don't want to do that. So, yeah, be cognizant, be your own advocate, stay safe, be mindful. Sex is a beautiful thing, and like I said, this is coming from someone who waited. I did wait, and there is grace in that, but I also, there's reasons behind that. But like, treat it with respect and reverence that it deserves. I'm not saying you can't be raunchy and kinky and whatever, like, but you deserve to be treated with respect. And if this is especially for women, if the guy's in his 40s and late 30s or 50s and he's telling you, I can't do more than a physical thing with you, bro, have more self-respect, bounce out. And maybe go out with someone who's 28, 29, maybe younger than you, but at least, like, they're in your age bracket, right? Because, and also too, if a guy says that, it really makes you question, okay, what's your lifestyle like? You never wanted to, like, maybe they didn't find anyone, but at that point, even at 40, 50, 60, they should be at least wanting to pursue something viable and worthwhile with someone. And if they can't, then I don't know, I would. And we're all at different points in our journey. We're all going to fuck up sometimes. We're going to sleep with the wrong person. We're going to fall in love with someone who can't reciprocate. It's going to be unrequited. Or you're going to break someone else's heart. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. It's Earth. It's a school. That's why we're here, right? You evolve to ascend to the higher level, right? That's what I think. That's how I see it. So I'm someone, like, I say, I'm like, I hope I earned my wings, God, because, I'm like, I don't want to come back, because I do believe in reincarnation. I'm like, I don't want to come back here. I want to go to the next level. I want to go to the next dimension. I want to go to heaven, so that's just me. And if you're someone like me and you feel the same way and you want to join that journey, and it's okay to make mistakes. I'm not saying no one's perfect. We're imperfectly perfect beings, right? I like to say for myself, I'm bruised, but I'm not broken. So, again, I always say, give yourself grace, and I hope my words can help you. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a counselor, I'm just a person. Consider this like peer-to-peer support. So, free peer-to-peer support. You don't even have to pay for it, I'm doing this as kind of like a fun side thing. I just feel also compelled to help people and share my experience and my words, because, there's a quote literally by Morgan Harper Nichols, and I posted it on my channel, and I said, the story of the mountain you climb may be someone else's survival guide. So consider this like a survival guide of sorts, So, again, and my words may not help you. Maybe you're like, this bitch, oh, she was 32, I don't give a fuck. Like, whatever, like, she's stupid, like, she's so Christian and, like, good-natured. No, I want to preface this. I have had raunchy sex where I even surprised myself, where I've been, to give you a clue, I've been face down in someone else's crotch and my crotch was in his face. So I think that's called like 69. So I've been there. I'm a good girl. I'm a goody two shoes, but I did explore sex in kind of like a more, I don't say kinky, but I did, I've done different positions and things, and it's part of life. We're humans, right? If we didn't do that, if we didn't enjoy pleasure, there would be something wrong with us. Unless you're asexual, because asexual people literally don't have any sexual desire or attraction, which I actually thought I was, because I waited so long and I was like, why am I not horny? Everyone else is horny. I was like, why is it in summer camp people are going behind the cabins and doing stuff, and I'm in the cabin playing Uno with my friend? Like, I wanted to feel normal, and I finally can say, I think after doing all this stuff, I'm like, okay, I feel confident in myself, and I'm not saying I'm great at sex. I'm not a sex expert. I'm not a sex therapist, but I wanted to do this to help people, because maybe you were like me. Maybe you're really shy. Maybe your parents, not to say my parents didn't disavow or disencouraged it. They didn't really talk about it that much. My brother was a bit more like, he had a lot more like he had girlfriends and relationships, and they actually did stay at our house and stuff. I don't know what they did in the room, but like they did. So my parents were pretty like lenient in that. I just, on my own volition, I never really, I felt like, for me in my heart, it felt sinful. I felt shameful to want to be naked or be interested in sex. So, you know, if you're like me and you want to take that journey and you're like, oh, I resonate with what she's saying, then by all means, you can. I feel so silly saying it because I've never thought I would do a YouTube channel. I'm like and subscribe. And I'm not planning to go viral anytime soon. I'm just doing this as a fun, consider this like my volunteering, my gift to you. I'm imparting my experience and my knowledge and my wisdom to you. So you can take it, you can leave it, but I will not accept any bad comments on anything. And if you do, I will disable the comments because there is no place for hate in this space.